Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, here to Sports Time HQ. I am your host, Fernando. Joined with me today is my great co-host, Keith. Keith, how you doing? We've had a good week.
We have had a good week. I mean, the Seahawks are back in the win column, so I'm happy. Not too sure you're happy about your Pats, but it was actually a way better weekend of football than week one. More high scoring games. So yeah, happy enough. My fantasy teams did okay. I'm still waiting on a few players tonight, but yeah, better than week one.
Yeah, 10 out of the 14 games were one-score games on the weekend and on including Thursday night. And then 2 of them went to overtime, including your Seahawks-Detroit game. And Keith, what was that nail-biter game to you? Were you nervous?
See, when at the end of the later stages of the fourth quarter, when Gino decided to run backwards to his own end zone, I was like, what the hell are you doing? I think that's when I was thinking, well, Gino's just cost us now. But obviously they just got the points to bring it to overtime. And I think if Gino didn't do that, we would have just won in regular time. But yeah, I was confident enough when we won the toss. When I see we won the toss, the way the game was going, no team could defend well. It was like whoever's going to get the ball first is going to score here. So I know it was kind of lots of disputes on the call. Was there holding? Was there not? When Lockett got in at the corner, but we got to take it. I'll take it as it goes. I mean, if the shoe was on the other foot and went the opposite way, I don't think I'd be happy. But I mean, what are you going to do? Detroit unlucky.
Yeah, Detroit was so unlucky. I mean, I had Detroit winning that game, and it shows Geno Smith can still do it. I mean, there was questions whether it would be like a 1 year where he did really good, and then we're back into the same boat where Seahawks have to find another quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he got paid. We knew week one was just terrible all around. It wasn't just Geno; it was everybody. I think they just weren't ready for that week one, and they bounced back big time this week. I mean, Geno looked good, and like we were saying, I think on probably a couple of weeks ago, that if Geno just does what he did last year, it's fine. But we're all just hoping for that little bit more of an improvement, so maybe the Seahawks can take the next step. So yeah, we're happy with Geno, but see what happens back at home. This week against the Panthers. So hopefully we can get another win then.
Yeah, and as for the Patriots, well, they fall to 0-2 for the first time since 2001. And yeah, it's a sad life here in New England.
Yeah, I can imagine so. And you've got the Jets coming. You go to the Jets, I think. You go to the Jets, I think, this week. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's going to be an easy game.
I mean, Zach Wilson's not the problem. It's that defense. I mean, if Mac Jones can beat that defense, I think you're going to win. But it's not an easy game.
That game should be – the Patriots should win that game.
You want to hope they do. But it's a division game as well. They keep giving you back-to-back division games, so that's not good for you. But it's rough.
Did you see Belichick? Did you see Belichick throw the challenge flag?
That was brilliant. I mean, that's how it should be thrown. He was just like, I don't know. He was like a spoiled child.
It was a grunk spike.
It was like just throwing his toys out of a pram. He was like, man.
Yeah. I was like, I remember watching because I was watching live and I was like, oh, is he going to throw it? I wonder if he's going to throw it. I didn't think he was going to spike it down in front of the ref, though.
Yeah, I mean, he was pissed. I think he was pissed he had to use it, and then it didn't work out in his favor either way. So
exactly. And then not to mention, I mean, they fell short. It's the game of inches.
That was a crazy play. I mean, Gesicki did well throwing it back to the lineman, and he just dived forward, and then it was so close. I mean, it didn't look like he got there, you know what I mean? But it was like, it was probably the right call, but it was hard to tell as well from different angles.
Exactly. But that's a little bit of recapping week 2, but talk about some injuries as well. I want to talk about is some running back injuries. David Montgomery, he's facing a thigh injury. He's right now day-to-day. It's just something to monitor, I think. But if he's out, Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm guessing you agree with this through the roof?
Yeah, I seen a report, might have been an hour ago, where Montgomery has said himself that he thinks he's going to be out, I think, a couple of weeks. So Gibbs through the roof. But in the game, they used Craig Reynolds to fill in for Montgomery, and he still got touches. Gibbs's workload didn't go up a whole lot, so I'd hope Gibbs through the roof, but I still think they they're kind of easing him in. I mean, he got more touches this week than he did in week 1, but I still don't think it's going to be 100%. I mean, I'm all in. I definitely go buy him. He's going to cost a pretty penny, but I definitely go buy him. But I still think Reynolds will probably go in there and slot in for Montgomery. It just depends how good he is.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to happen. Reynolds could definitely take some snap percentage from Gibbs, but I don't really see that being too much of a difference. Like, I think Gibbs is, I mean, if he's not already 100% owned, he will be 100% owned.
Oh, he's definitely, he has to be 100% owned at this stage. I mean, there's probably 100% people trying to go buy him. It just depends what the price tag is.
Yeah, and right now there's 100% of the people that are not enjoying Saquon Barkley's injury again, as he is now week to week. He had a ankle sprain, just as in quotes ordinary. They don't say it's a high ankle sprain, so he's not missing an extensive amount of time, but they say he can miss up to 3 weeks, more or less around 3 weeks. And we don't have to talk about the backup right now because I think he's going to come in later on in the show. But what's your thought on Barkley's injury? Like, is this time to panic now for the Giants?
I mean, it was time to panic yesterday during the game. It was a good comeback.
Yeah, it was a good comeback.
It's a big loss for the Giants and for Daniel Jones. I mean, Jones is going to have to do a lot more work now. Like we said, we'll talk about the backup later on, but it's definitely not good news. They didn't start well in either games. You know, they got to win yesterday. Everybody was expecting them to win way more comfortably than they actually did. So yeah, it is worrying times for the Giants. Barkley, I suppose, unlucky injury again. I mean, the guy just keeps finding injuries, or they keep finding him, one or the other. But yeah, unlucky for him. Hopefully they can get a few wins in the weeks he's out, and then they come back and it's, you know, he's fresh and good to go. But it's definitely disappointing for the Giants.
Yeah, and he had a good fantasy day too. I mean, he scored over 20 something points, and then all of a sudden the ankle injury came up, and now he's out. And for people that paid so much for Barkley, now you're gonna have to look through waivers, because there's been a lot of running backs that haven't really been producing that a lot of people have seen, including Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler, who were just out last week.
Yeah, it's kind of been weird. There's a lot of let's say top guys that haven't performed through the first couple of weeks. You know, whether it's poor quarterback play, the teams are just not ready yet, you know, that way, or injuries, but they're definitely starting to hurt people's fantasy leagues already.
Yeah, like personally, in my dynasty leagues, I'm looking for this next top running back, like a Jonathan Taylor next, and I really can't seem to love anyone to want to trade for them, because they're either 25 and now you're on that borderline whether or not they're going to be relevant next year. Yeah. And then you also got the production. Are they going to produce? I mean, it's just been all over the place, the running back game this year.
Yeah, and like even look at someone like Derrick Henry. He's not even getting the amount of snaps so far. Spears is getting in there. And are people saying, is Henry finally over the hill? I mean, he still gets his touchdowns, and I still think he looks good when he has the ball, but do they know that he just can't, you know, have the same workload as previous years? So maybe the position's just a little bit on the down right now. And, you know, we'll see as the season goes on. But it's definitely a more passing league. You know what I mean? It's definitely more for the wide receivers and maybe catching running backs. It's definitely going that way. But it's kind of interesting to see how these running backs may go throughout the season.
Yeah, and speaking of running backs, we have a guy that, Keith, I think you were a little high on going into this year, and he's now on the trade block, being inactive this past week. Cam Akers, what's going on with this guy? Is he going to be a Ram or what? Because it seems like they wanted to trade him last year, and now they want to trade him again.
Yeah, and like last year, they said he had an attitude problem on, you know, basically him and McVay weren't getting on, and so he was on the trade block. Now it's like, oh no, his attitude's been great, where it's about, you know, he didn't have a great week in practice, so now we're putting him on trade block. Or the other thing I heard was that teams have now started calling about him, so they were like, oh, we'll just put him on the trade block now, we might get him out. So it's hard to tell what's going on there, but yeah, he's definitely out of there. He seemed surprised. He put on Twitter saying he didn't really know what was going on, more or less. So yeah, it looked like he was back in the good books there, but obviously not. So I'd expect that in the next couple of weeks he'll be on a new team.
I know he was on the trade block last year, and no team ended up trading for him. Do you think this year would be the year that he finally moves and finds a new home?
Yeah, I think I'll talk about it a little bit more later as well, but I do think he'll get a new home.
Okay, and lastly, for our injuries and news and notes from around the league for week 2, concussion protocol. We've been talking a lot about that last week, and there's a lot of players again on the protocol this week again. Anthony Richardson, Devontae Adams, Jalen Waddle, Logan Thomas. So big players. I mean, Logan Thomas kind of had a good week last week for tight ends, and then he got that hit, and now he's in concussion protocol. So these big name guys being concussion protocol, and we saw it last week with Jacoby Myers not playing for week 2. Do you think these are going to have an impact again for this week?
I think so. I think the Logan Thomas one will. That's
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was the same guy that took out Myers, took out Logan.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same guy that took him out. Yeah, I think this is gonna like Waddle getting his last night. That may cut him short because they have a day less. So I think teams are definitely going to be more cautious, and obviously the NFL is going to be more cautious, especially after like Tua last season. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether they make it through the protocol and are back on the field for this week. But I wouldn't be betting on it that they definitely will be.
Yeah, and a lot of people, for fantasy purposes, are hoping that 1, they get back to the field healthy, but 2, help their fantasy team. Of course.
Yep. Especially Richardson. He was having a great game too.
Yeah, but CJ Stroud's still better. Just saying.
Yeah.
I'm a Stroud believer.
I pick Stroud in a lot of leagues, like as there are super flex. So like as my third quarterback, and yeah, he did well this week. 21 points, I think. So
yeah, he scored just about 21 points. Speaking of being such a high scoring powered quarterback, he's not a surprise this week, but we do move on to our biggest surprises and busts of the week. And Keith, I'm sure you want to talk about your biggest surprise being Antonio Gibson, right?
No, I wish it was Antonio Gibson, but it's not. It's Brian Robinson, who had probably the best fantasy day as running back. I mean, he cleaned up against Denver. Denver's defense was pretty good going into this, but he absolutely took it apart. 18 rushing attempts, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions for 42 yards. I mean, 28 fantasy points on the day. That I did not see that coming. And what made it worse, one of my big leagues, I was against Ken Walker and Brian Robinson, and I was kind of going, they're 2 okay guys, but they're probably not going to do that good. And Ken Walker didn't even look that good. He just got 2 touchdowns, but Brian Robinson looked brilliant, and it showed on the day. And I mean, Gibson's not going to get a look in now if Robinson can keep this up. That's the big thing, whether he can keep this type of production up. I mean, he's not going to be going against a favorable run defense every week, but definitely a big plus for him. I don't know whether he's probably go out and buy low type of guy. But yeah, big surprise for me, and killed me in one of my fantasy leagues.
Yeah, he's unfortunately gave me the heartbreak on Gibson and any Gibson truthers, because obviously now you see Robinson run for so long. He finished this week right now as the RB1. Obviously 2 more games still left to play tonight. But just by him finishing in the RB1 and getting so much snap percentage versus Antonio Gibson, it's a big switch, because a lot of people thought that Gibson would finally become more relevant because of J.D. McKissic being out the door, and now it's completely changed.
Yeah, and Gibson was kind of like the Eric Bieniemy type of running back. He's the guy he likes, that way, and we're just not seeing it yet. And the thing with Brian Robinson, we kind of knew what he was. He was like a hard-nosed, straight up the middle, run through the tackles type of guy, but we didn't see an awful lot because of, the whole incident with him last year. Like, there was definitely more to come with him, and I think that's what we're seeing now. It's whether he can, keep that up now. It's only 2 weeks, and he's only had really, 1 good week, but see if he can keep it up now. But hopefully Gibson can be worked in, because I've got way more shares of Gibson, probably like you.
Yeah, you are completely right on that. I think I have maybe 1 share of Robinson in maybe 20 of my leagues.
Yeah, I'm the same. I have 1 share of Robinson. I didn't start him because why?
Yeah. Why would you? Because you're a truther in Gibson. Because obviously running backs who decide to perform well only perform well on your bench.
Exactly. That's the same as every other year. You know how it goes.
Speaking of another running back that most people maybe even had on the bench because he was only 32% started in sleeper format leagues, is Raheem Mostert. I mean, he went off again. I mean, this is back-to-back weeks scoring in the double digits, got you 25.7 points, and he finished right now as the RB5. He had 18 attempts, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He did catch that one reception for 6 yards, but going against New England's defense, New England's got a good defense. So to see him plow through the defense of the Patriots and even break away, not even getting touched on that 43-yard touchdown run last night, I mean, that shocked me. That shocked me to see Mostert do so well. And it goes to show, is the Patriots defense able to stop the run, or is Mostert just kind of getting that back end of his career one last season type of thing? And if you look at the rest of the season schedule for him, I mean, Denver, Buffalo, New York Giants, and the Panthers, those are his next 4 games. Those are solid teams that Mostert can continue and score a lot of points for fantasy. So I think Mostert should be a guy to be watching and maybe even plugging and playing right away.
Yeah, with them fixtures, I think the Bills probably the toughest one out. That probably won't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't expect them to have really top, fantasy day against the Bills, but the rest of them he definitely could. It was surprising last night, especially against your Patriots defense, because they are one of the top defense. Maybe they were just trying to lock down Tyreek and Waddle so much that I don't know what happened. I mean, he looked okay, Mostert, to be fair. I don't think he looked brilliant. I think the stats kind of flatter him a little bit. But yeah, it is what it is, and it's a great fantasy day. But the problem with Mostert, it's a bit like Barkley and stuff like that. He always gets hurt.
Yep.
You're always expecting him to go down, and that's why you always have to have a couple of backups there just in case. So he's definitely a guy you can, if he's there, you put him in, you play. And I think Savon Ahmed, I think he went down injured as well. So that's one out of the way if you do have Mostert, that. So yeah, I mean, it definitely surprise against the Patriots, and this is where I suppose the Patriots might have a problem this week against the Jets if they use Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall, to good effect in the run game. So, you're thinking the Patriots will win. I'm not so sure.
Well, I mean, we'll move right into the bus because I actually have 2 guys that I want to talk about, and you led me right into the Jets and Breece Hall. He sent out a tweet that had 4 footballs because he only had four touches. He had 4 touches for 9 yards, and your quarterback isn't the greatest. At least I would hope your quarterback isn't the greatest because he sees ghosts. So, anyways, for a top running back like Breece Hall that you spent a high draft capital on to not even score 1 point in fantasy is ridiculous. I mean, he had 2 targets, didn't even catch one, and just run the ball. You signed Dalvin Cook for a reason. You have Breece Hall for a reason. You have 2 top running backs. It should be a run first team. It should not be a pass first team for the Jets. Even though the Jets have Garrett Wilson, don't get me wrong. I have a lot of Wilson shares. Keep passing the ball to Wilson and only Wilson. But you got to run the ball. You have 2 amazing running backs. To not run the ball and only give Breece Hall, your top running back, 4 touches, that's a problem. And I think there's a lot of more problems to come for the Jets.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm pretty sure Dalvin Cook had minus fantasy points as well. So it was just a disaster for the Jets running game this week after a brilliant week 1 for Breece Hall as well. So I don't know. They need to get it going there. Just because Aaron Rodgers is down doesn't mean the run game goes to crap. They need to get that going because that's how they're going to beat teams. I mean, it's going to be old school football, run the ball, play good defense, see what happens. Hope Zach Wilson control the ball, just a certain number of times to hit Garrett Wilson that he doesn't need to be doing it over and over again. But yeah, definitely a big bust is Breece Hall. And you put up on Twitter, like you said, the 4 footballs and stuff like that. But he wasn't happy about it. So we'll see what happens. I'm expecting to be a major difference against you guys this week.
Yeah, and to add on to Dalvin Cook, between the 2 running backs, they combined for 1.1 points.
There you go. Shocking.
Terrible.
Shocking.
But I do also want to talk about my main bust, and that's Joshua Kelly, because Kelly was started in many leagues, especially teams who we saw the production that he did in week 1, and that was with Eckler. And now that Eckler was gone, you said, all right, Kelly, boom, he's a must start. I mean, he's just gonna light it up like a Christmas tree. Well, Christmas didn't come for him because he only scored 3.9 points. And for many people, including myself, who started him, it might have lost you the week because he hit 13 touches, only had 39 yards in those 13 touches, and still is yet to get a reception this season.
Yeah, very odd. He was on the field more times, but they just seemed to throw it to Keenan Allen instead of giving it to Kelly in the run game. It was very odd. I mean, that Chargers team, nothing's changed since last year. They need to outscore teams. They're not good on defense. If they can't outscore a team, they don't win. Simple as. I don't see Brandon Staley being there much longer. If this keeps up, I think he'll be sacked. Yeah, Joshua Kelly was on our waivers last week. I think everybody after Nakua, I think everybody was going after Kelly once we knew Eckler wasn't playing, but didn't work out. Yeah, very odd, because if Eckler was out there, he would have got at least, maybe 6 targets in the passing game to pad it up a bit, that way, and probably 5 receptions. So why couldn't Kelly get that? I don't know, but very odd. Clearly and it didn't work for the Chargers because they didn't win. So yeah, it's a shame. Probably a lot of people, you probably let down a lot of people in their fantasy leagues.
Let me down, that's for sure.
Yep.
Unfortunately. But Keith, who is your bust player for week 2?
So I'm going a guy that, okay, his number is definitely bust, but he looked terrible, and he's looked terrible through 2 weeks, and it's Alexander Mattison for the Vikings.
Oh man, he was a high draft capital this season.
He was going in at what, RB2, slotting in like as a solid RB2, and like he had 8 rushing attempts for 28 yards, 6 targets, caught 3 for 11 yards. I mean, the numbers are terrible. He got just under 5 fantasy points. I mean, it's terrible, but if you actually just watching him play, he looks like a backup. You can see why he was a backup to Dalvin Cook for years. I mean, we were probably fools in thinking that, he comes into the game when they take out Dalvin when he was there and he looks good, but it's probably later in the game, defenses are tired, and he just goes through, because when he starts off the game, he just looks so bad. He doesn't know where to go, what hole to go through. I mean, does he go right? Does he go left? He just looks terrible. I'm not starting him. Nick, I have him in a couple of leagues, which I obviously regret. I am not starting him this week. Doesn't matter who he's against. If he goes off, fine. I'm happy. We'll see what happens. But I need to see a lot better from Madison. He just looks terrible.
Yeah, this kind of brings back to our mock draft when we talked about Tony Pollard and Alexander Mattison. And I mean, I was never a big fan of Pollard or Madison, but obviously we've seen Pollard produce very well in Cowboys. But Madison, I mean, it's just a downstream trend for Madison. And it looks like they really hit on Jordan Addison as well, which is really great for the Vikings. I mean, that's 2 solid receivers. So it goes to show it's going to be a pass-first offense like it's always been. And there's no really reliable running back that you have there. And it looks like the Vikings are going to be playing down for many games this season, the way they played so far.
It's a bit like the Chargers with them. They're going to have to outscore teams. And Kirk Cousins is QB1 in fantasy so far, which kind of says it all, because they have to sling the ball, a lot. So, yeah, I mean, it's not looking great for Madison, but he's not doing himself any favors, because he just doesn't look capable, doesn't look good enough. And there's a lot of improvement needed from him to, get you more fantasy points.
Yeah, so Madison, definitely a guy that I have no shares of, and I am perfectly okay with.
I definitely have one, but I'm getting away with it so far because I'm pretty sure I won last week, and I'm going to win this week.
You hope you win this week.
Well, I have 187 points. If I get beaten with that, it's very unlucky.
Yeah, that is very unlucky. Actually, I know someone that's losing right now after scoring 190 points.
No way. Oh.
Yeah, I think the other person scored like 197 or something. It's just a tough break.
I hate when that happens. And there's probably someone that's already won who had like 110 points or something like that, which is annoying.
Hey, Keith, did you have anyone else that you wanted to talk about being a bust?
Josh Jacobs was the one that was I was thinking about. I mean,
-2 yards.
Yeah, -2 yards against a good Buffalo defense, to be fair. I mean, he was still out there a lot. There's no panic button on Josh Jacobs yet, but it was just notable that he was a massive bust this week.
Yeah, I mean, what helped him was his pass game, because he had 5 receptions for 51 yards, and he finished the day with 9.90 points. So, yeah. I mean, I liked him this year. I liked him going into this year, but obviously that did not show that I like him a lot right now because he's not doing good.
I know. And it's going to be interesting. We'll see. Obviously, Jacoby Myers concussion, Adams concussion. If they're not around, you expect a lot of Jacobs this week.
Yeah, I hope to see Jacobs a lot more in the field, especially for everyone who drafted him so early in the drafts.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's time to go into our waiver wires for week number 3. Before we do that, go to Underdog Fantasy. Be sure to use code SportsTimeHQ. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. So go get your over-unders, because if you listened to Keith last week about taking the under on Josh Allen, I think you would have won.
Yep, I'm pretty sure he won. I think he just got one right. I think there was 1.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, listen
1.5 is the over-under. So once again, go to Underdog Fantasy, use code SportsTimeHQ. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. But also want to talk about TrophySmack.com. Go over there, use TrophySmack.com/SportsTimeHQ, and there's still a chance to go get yourself some trophies, rings, some belts for your fantasy teams, whether it's football or any other fantasy sport, and get you and your league mates some bling and go brag about it at the end of the season. So once again, go to TrophySmack.com/SportsTimeHQ. But now it's time for our week 3 waiver wire quarterbacks. Keith, I want to talk about this guy that I think we both love, and it's Jordan Love.
Yep.
I mean, he did so well this past 2 weeks. He managed to beat the Falcons, which I thought wasn't going to happen. Or excuse me, he didn't beat the Falcons. He
didn't beat the Falcons. He lost the Falcons. He won week 1,
He should have beat the Falcons. Yeah, he did, but he did win you fantasy if you managed to start him, because the past 2 weeks he scored you over 20 points, and he has had 2 back-to-back weeks of 3 touchdowns with no interceptions. So I think he's going to be a reliable quarterback moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the big thing is that there was no Aaron Jones this week. There was no Christian Watson, and he still was able, they didn't win the game, but they almost got there, and he still performed for fantasy. And I mean, when them 2 guys are back in the team, I think it's lights out for Love. I mean, for fantasy wise, I think his numbers could go through the roof. He could be 25 plus, with Christian Watson and Aaron Jones out there. I just think with a full complement, like, the sky's the limit. And I know people say maybe the Packers didn't look great this week, but I do think when they have all their injuries back, I do think they're going to be a really good team.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Watson isn't even on the field yet and Love is still producing 20-plus fantasy points, I mean, that's a solid player, and you probably got him either late or he was probably undrafted in many leagues in one quarterback formats.
Yeah, I mean, he's on waivers in a lot of my leagues, and I've Justin Fields in a couple of them, and now I got to rethink that one, especially after last week. Week 1, I was kind of like, okay, forget about that. He can have one. Week 2, now not good. So yeah, Jordan Love might be a guy I'm going after, and then we'll see what happens. Might just stream the position, or we leave Love in there.
It'll be interesting to see, but he's a quarterback that I am loving, and I'm sure you're loving as well. And because you talked about him last week as well.
I did, yeah. He was mine. It was my week for week 2. And it was just kind of, I wanted to see what he would do. We hadn't really seen a lot of Jordan Love, but these past 2 weeks, I mean, he's a very capable quarterback, and I think he's going to be good for the Packers.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the Packers once Christian Watson comes back, and see if he'll be lights out for Love as well. But Keith, who is your waiver wire quarterback?
He's my boy, Geno Smith. How could I not pick Geno? He's still not 70% rostered. He's just under. But I mean, 328 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, which is what we like, at 23 fantasy points. He had a good game. The matchup was there. We knew it was going to be end to end. With the Lions, both defenses not very good, and it kind of worked out well. High scoring games that go back to back are generally good for fantasy football, and that proved to be the case, especially when it went to overtime as well. I think he's definitely a streamable guy. This week they're playing against the Panthers, a home. You'd expect another at least 23 fantasy points, if not more. I think so. Anyways, the Panthers aren't any world beaters, and the Seahawks are capable and are, I think, a pretty good team. So yeah, Geno Smith for me. I think I'll be, if you're looking to stream quarterbacks or one quarterback lead like me, you have Justin Fields. You need to make a decision. I definitely think Geno's a good option.
Are you playing Geno Smith over Justin Fields right now?
Yep. I think Justin Fields has the Chiefs, and I don't want any part of that. So I'd play Geno.
Yeah.
I'd play Geno Smith.
Yeah, I like Geno. He actually would have been my guy if you didn't take him from me. But I really like Geno actually, and I'm still high on him ever since last year. Obviously, he finished in fantasy QB5 last year, and I still believe that. I still think he can finish as a top 10 quarterback. Again, he faced the Rams in week 1. Everyone did terrible in week 1, so it kind of just throws that into the water and just let it flow. Go into the next week, see what he can do the next week. After 2 weeks, if you start to not do good, then it's maybe time to hit the panic button. But he showed that he can come back and win games. That's for sure against Detroit. And yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Carolina. I don't know whether it's going to be a concern to start Geno only because I think that the Panthers are not going to do well. So I think the Seahawks, it'll be more of a run game, which hurts me in a lot of leagues because I don't have Kenneth Walker or Zach Jarman.
Yeah. I still think there'll be enough to go around for, he'll throw to Lockett, he'll throw to Metcalf. Metcalf did get banged up with that rib injury, so it'll be interesting to see. He did come back, so hopefully he's okay, but I still think there'll be enough to go around that he'll hit the 20 points.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, hopefully DK Metcalf doesn't sustain any more injury because obviously he came back into the game. And then you got JSN as well. So 3 really great options. And Noah Fant, he got a little productive in that game too.
Yeah, he did when we needed it as well, which was good.
Exactly. But of course, Jordan Love and Geno Smith are our 2 waiver wire quarterback ads of the week. Some other ones that I want to talk about that could be good alternate waiver wire options if these 2 players are not available is Baker Mayfield. Got you 18 points. He's only 19% owned in sleeper formats. Sam Howell, 21 points, 20.9%. Russell Wilson, 26.9. Just don't get fooled by how many points he scored because of that last play with the Hail Mary.
He looked terrible as well. His numbers are fine. And like you said, the Hail Mary, pads that. But in general, he didn't look good.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously the QB1 of the week, which was Daniel Jones, 31.7 points. For someone who finishes a top 7, top 8 quarterback last year, I'm hoping he goes back to his original self. But as a Patriots fan, I hope he doesn't because the Giants, we don't like the Giants.
Yeah, I know. That's probably going to make it harder now with Saquon as well. So
exactly. So I think those are some good also options, especially since Saquon you mentioned being out. I mean, that means they're probably going to pass the ball a lot more than running it.
Yeah, and Jalen Hyatt looked pretty good.
He did.
Which was good. And then Slayton with a big play. And Waller, if Waller can stay healthy, that's the big question. That's the question marks with the Giants wide receivers for many years. They can never stay healthy. So you just got to see what happens.
Yeah, draw that little question mark with the little dot because you don't know what's going to happen with those wide receivers.
Exactly.
Now going on to our waiver wire running backs this week. And speaking of the Giants and Barkley, Keith, who is your ad of the week for running backs?
Well, it's Matt Breida, of course. With Saquon gone down now for what? Expecting 3 weeks. He's definitely a pickup and maybe number 1 pickup because if he's going to get the usage like Barkley does, he's going to be very valuable for fantasy football. Go back to his time with the 49ers. He was very good. He's a speedster. He's lights out. The only thing that could go against him is where I'm bringing Cam Akers back in. And I'm going to ask you, Fernando, do you think that they could go and trade for Cam Akers?
I think they could, but personally, I think with what we've seen with Achilles tears in running backs, I think teams have stayed away from them. So that's why I'm concerned on whether Akers is going to find a new home. And if he does, it's very, very cheap. It's maybe like a 7th or 6th round pick, if that. So I think there's an option, but I don't see it happening. I think if Akers goes anywhere, it might be to Miami.
Okay. I just thought the minute Barkley went down last night, you could see Sean McVay taking the phone, going, "Get me Brian Daboll on the phone. I have a running back right here."
McVay for sure. He's definitely on the phone saying, "Hey,
I got you. Come to me. We'll make a deal."
Hey, Dable, so I know your running back went down. I have a running back who's on the shelf right now waiting to come off the shelf to play for you.
Exactly.
I don't
Great
think it's going to
attitude.
happen.
Great attitude. Great player.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Second
I would
round
love
pick.
to. Yeah, great player. I'll give him. I'll give it to you for a second round. No, I don't see Akers finding a home over there in New York. I mean, he could, but I think they're going to stick with Matt Breida. Like you mentioned, Breida, his time in San Francisco, he did well, and a few times fantasy wise, don't see a high floor on him. I mean, a high floor because he could score you 1 or 2 points, and his ceiling could be up to 20.
His ceiling's probably better because he's one of them that could just burst a big run and he's gone and he's that fast you can't catch him. But it's whether
But that's the thing.
He can do that consistently.
Exactly. That's the thing. If he has that one major run, 75-yard touchdown run, boom, he wins you on if you started him. But if that's the only thing he's got, then he's not a reliable option, in my opinion. So I'm concerned on Matt Breida. But I think he'll be one of the top waiver ads of the week for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And he's only, I think he's only 3% owned.
3% owned, yeah.
3%. So I want to talk about my guy, and he was your guy last week. So
the guy you weren't convinced on last week?
I was not, but after watching how he did, and obviously a lot of it last week, what I didn't like. This week I liked him a lot. I liked seeing how he played. I wanted to give him another chance, Keith. I gave him the other chance, and I like it. It's Kyren Williams. I mean,
also helps Akers on the shelf.
Exactly. With Cam Akers now on the shelf, it shows me that the Rams are all in on Kyren Williams. And Kyren Williams, he's right now 64% owned. We're not going to be talking about him next week because he's going to be over 70% owned. He scored 28 points this past week. I mean, he did phenomenal. Kyren Williams. I mean, let's be real. I mean, I think he might be a plug and play for the rest of the season. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, he was probably not going in drafts or a late round pick in drafts. And now he's potential league winner. You know what I mean? That's what he is.
Yeah, he was, I mean, many leagues he went undrafted and now he's being picked up on waivers. But for a player who had 52 rushing yards, which it's all right for a running back. He did get into the end zone, which is nice to see. He's getting red zone touches, but not to mention the targets. Matthew Stafford has just been throwing to so many different players and to same ones at the same time with Kyren Williams getting 10 targets. That's double-digit targets right there. That's a lot for a running back and throughout a game. 6 receptions, 48 yards. So he had a great day, and his next matchup is against Cincinnati, which Cincinnati, it's time to hit the panic button on them. Sorry, Katie.
I know. She knows. I think she's hoping Joe Burrow sits next week. I know they'll probably take a loss, but it's just an odd situation there. If Joe wasn't healthy, why did you just not play him in the first 2 games? Because you lost anyways. This makes no difference. But
Jamar said it. Jamar
did say
he should be sitting out for the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, he did. He called that weeks ago. He called it weeks ago. But
and look at that. You bench him for 3 weeks. You're expecting to go 0-3 without him. You might go 0-3 with him.
With him, anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. I know it's bad management from Zach Taylor, really bad management. I don't like Zach Taylor anyways, so he just gives me more ammo against him. I think his players do the job, and that's why he's there. But I don't think he's a great coach. But going back onto Kyren Williams. I mean, he's definitely between him and Breida for number 1 pickup for running back. If Kyren Williams is out there, I'd say he's taken in half the leagues now. I don't know what, he's probably just under 70%, is he? What's his ownership percentage? I'm not too sure, but I'd imagine
Kyren
a lot of people picked
right
him
now
up last
64.
week. Okay, yeah, so he's just over half. So I'd say a lot of people picked him up last week. So if he's out there, you go get him as well. And you've just got to plug and play. You just put him in, unless you've got really strong running backs. You put him in and you play him.
Yeah, he'll be on my waivers. Just don't pick him up in the same league that you're in with me.
If there's fab, you're putting 100% fab on him.
100% fab. I actually, for Kyren Williams, I'd be willing to give 50% of my fab for him.
Yeah.
Because running backs are so hard to find.
Yeah, and like we said, he could be a league winner.
Yeah, I'm willing to spend actually $51 because you got to make sure that
Because there's
if
always
you have 100,
has to be kind of odd. Somebody's going to go 50.
exactly, they're always. I mean, when do you put in $10 or $50? You got to
Oh,
put 51, 53,
that's it.
54,
Yeah.
and then you lose by $1, and then you're like, oh man, I should have just bet the extra dollar.
Dollar, exactly. Because what's the dollar going to do really in the long term? Nothing. And you're better off having the player.
Exactly. But of course, those are our two running backs ads of the week, Matt Breida and Kyron Williams. Some other running backs I want to mention is Justice Hill, who obviously didn't score too much, but he was still an option in Baltimore, as well as Gus Edwards. And then Zach Moss, who had a great week, 20.7 points, 56% owned. Looks like he's going to be the top dog in Indianapolis until Jonathan Taylor comes back, if he ever comes back. And then lastly, Kenneth Gainwell. Of course, he was inactive for week 2, so we saw DeAndre Swift go through the roof and shock a lot of people who started him and got 20-something points, 27 points. But with Kenneth Gainwell probably back, I don't see DeAndre Swift getting that much.
No, I'd say snap percentage. I'd say maybe Swift gets a bit more, but I'd still say Gainwell will be in there as well, and you won't see a lot of Boston Scott. I know.
Yeah,
that's the way it's going to go, I think.
Yeah, for sure. 100% agree with you on that. I mean, I'm willing to take the chance on Kenneth Gainwell. I actually tried trading for him when he was inactive, and the guy didn't want to give him to me.
A good buy low. I mean, they were happy enough first week to say he's our starter, and Swift seeing a very low snap percentage, and then obviously they had no choice with him being inactive, the past week, and then Swift just he goes off. I mean, if Gainwell's fit, does Gainwell go off? Like, that's kind of their offensive line was just killing them, and he was fine, and Swift was fine all the holds. So I'd imagine Swift will see, like, you might be like 55% snaps, and like then Gainwell picks up the rest. That's what I think. There won't be too much in it. I think they'll give Swift that bit more just because he went off last week.
Yeah, and it'll go back to Kenneth Gainwell as well, and it depends on who gets the goal line work. That's also another question.
Yeah.
So let's go on to our waiver wire wide receivers, and I'll talk about mine first. And boy, do I love mine, because if you drafted him, you're enjoying some Rico Nico right there with Nico Collins. I mean, he's got you some rich fantasy points, and right now he sits in the wide receiver 6. Back-to-back games, he's had 9+ targets. He's caught over 6 of them, and then he also had triple-digit reception yards, 146 yards. Not to mention, he also got into the end zone once. Nico is Rico in Houston because he is CJ Stroud's favorite target. And I mentioned this last week in Nico. I said, go get him because he's going to keep doing well because he's Stroud's favorite target. Well, for the 10% on Sleeper that listened to me, he's still only 55% owned. So he needs to be added in all formats because he is a viable wide receiver 2 option going forward until we know otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said last year, I was picking him up everywhere in the end of drafts. The only problem with that, I haven't started him any week because I have better wide receivers in them positions. Like Jamar.
You said a little. Yeah, he's got that little thing.
Jamar Chase is meant to be better. And Nico Collins sits on the bench and gets 20-odd points while Jamar gets like 8 or something. But yeah, he's a must add. A must at this stage. We know what CJ Stroud's going to do. He's going to find Nico Collins. That's what he's going to do. Their defense is that bad. They're going to be in high-scoring games to try and stay in games, try and get a win somehow. They're not going to get many wins this year, let's be honest. But that's going to be good for fantasy because it's going to mean Stroud's going to throw a lot, and they're going to have to try and keep up with other teams. That means Nico Collins is going to be very viable. I'm actually fighting with myself over that this week. It's going to be a bold call if I have to put Jamar on the bench and start Nico Collins. But what am I have to do to try and get a win?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you do that, you have to post it. Say, hey guys, I'm starting Jamar Chase. I mean, I'm benching Jamar Chase for Nico Collins.
Yeah, well, it depends what goes on with even if Burrow does start, you can't guarantee what I've seen past few weeks. It's going to be good.
You're starting a player. You're benching a player who was the second overall pick in drafts to a guy who was the last round undrafted free agent.
I know. Sure, I'm calling Jamar Chase Jam Jar now because he's just doing nothing. Like that's his name. It's just Jam Jar Chase. But
Now, here's the thing. Do you trade Nico Collins? Would you trade him?
depends what I got back. If I got back a top running back and somebody really wanted him, yeah, I would. I would trade him.
What if
But
it was Nico for Kyron Williams?
interesting. Depending on what my running backs was. I'd rather have Nico. Just on the teams I have Nico, I'd rather have Nico because my running backs are not too bad. I think I have Chubb and Cook, not Dalvin Cook, the brother, and a few others. I'm trying to think who else I got. Another league I have like Pollard and Stevenson. So I'm like, I'm okay. I can deal with Collins. It just depends. I'm not a fan of trading like first thing position, so I'm not going to trade for another wide receiver. Do you know that way?
Yeah, I get you. Because you can't just trade a wide receiver for a wide receiver.
Wide receiver, yeah.
It's just not how that works.
No, it's not exactly. It's not how it works. So, yeah, no, unless I got some like in a league, like if like that league I have Chubb, if someone's going to give me something silly, like I don't know, Tony Pollard or something like that, and I throw in someone else with Collins, then maybe, yeah, I'd do that. But right now I'm happy. I'd let people come to me looking, if someone's stuck, come to me for the offer and see what they could do. Or maybe I go, maybe I'll have a look at some leagues. I can take advantage of somebody.
Yeah, I mean, you could try and take advantage of another player if you have him, if you manage to pick him up and you listen to Keith from last week, because he was added in 71% of leagues. So obviously he's we can't really talk about him being a waiver wire ad this week, but he was your waiver wire ad last week. I just want to quickly talk about him because obviously you're not talking about him this week for your waiver wire ad. Mr. Puka Nacua. Yep. Who? I mean, this man, 35 targets in the last 2 weeks, 25 receptions, triple digits in over 2 games. I mean, in both games. And not to mention, he still hasn't even yet touched the end zone. And he's got you 51 points in those last 2 weeks. The wide receiver, too. I think he's better than Cooper Kupp.
Oh, that's a big shout. I mean, he's the one thing I would say, I think he's for real. It wasn't just a week one, blow up and, then he comes out the next week and he gets like 2 targets and that's it. I think he is for real. The big test is when Cooper Kupp comes back. Now that we've seen it back to back. But like you said earlier, Stafford is throwing the ball around more. So maybe, his targets, like we said, will drop a bit, but he'll still be very relevant for fantasy. And I still think he will be. So, I mean, even if he sees 5 or 6 targets and he gets most of the receptions, say six targets, 5 receptions, and he falls into the end zone, I mean, he's still going to be great for fantasy.
I mean, I'm just calculating some numbers here, but he right now, obviously with Cooper Kupp coming back, it's a little different of a story, but he's right now on pace for 200 receptions and 2,128 reception yards.
I mean, it's crazy. He's not going to hit it. It's going to slow down a bit, I would imagine, but that's crazy.
Do you trade him? I mean, this is the time to trade him. You see that he's for real.
Do you trade him for Cooper Kupp?
What? No. Cooper Kupp's Kupp. Oh my goodness. Cooper Kupp's terrible. I'm not a Cooper Kupp fan.
You're not a Cooper Kupp
fan?
I'm
not a Cooper Kupp fan. I'm not a Cooper Kupp fan. I've been all out on Cooper Kupp ever since Robert Woods was a Ram, because I was always a big Robert Woods believer.
I preferred Robert Woods just because the way they used him. He was kind of like the Debo,
exactly,
in the backfield and all that stuff. I liked him because of that, and then he get more twitches for fantasy. I think when they he really got a connection with Stafford when Stafford came in, and that was the whole changing of the guard. But I think it's interesting. I think you'd get some people who would offer you silly things for Nacua right now. Especially, I actually tried. Think about Jamar not playing well.
Yeah,
not doing well for fantasy.
I mean, it goes to show that you could try and trade for them.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like some people might do that. I mean, I would take probably Jamar now for in Dynasty, like or something like that. If I've got Puka Nacua and you want to give me Jamar and do something silly, I'll take Jamar. Okay, just to have a few bad games. Yeah. He's not going to have a few bad games for years.
He could.
But I don't see.
Imagine he's the bust of the year.
He could be the bust of the year, but he might be next year. Like that's the thing. It's Dynasty, not redraft. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, for instance, in one of my leagues with Michael Florio, I mean, I actually tried trading him Nacua. I tried trading
Florio
him.
Do?
He actually didn't see it, so then I canceled it. But I tried getting ETN and Garrett Wilson, and I was gonna send Nakua and I want to say James Cook because he's a Bills fan, so I knew he likes the Bills.
You're trying to pull that
But
heartstrings. You're taking advantage.
Hey, I
You're a
mean,
bad man, Fernando. You're a bad man.
But now you look at Nakua and you look at how ETN did, and Garrett Wilson's concerned with Rodgers not being there. I mean, I feel like that's kind of a decent deal in my opinion. Nakua looks to be a top option. James Cook looks really good. I like ETN. ETN didn't have a great week, and then Garrett Wilson, he's a good underdog too with Zach Wilson there.
And is this redraft or dynasty?
Redraft, of course. Redraft.
Okay, yeah, I could see how it works on both sides, like you said.
Yeah, I needed wide receivers, you know.
Yeah, I'd be confident. I'm not like I'd be kind of out on Wilson now, so I'd be more confident on Nakua on that side of the trade.
Exactly, but he didn't see it in time, so I withdrew it. You know, it's like sleeper. You got that like bomb timer, and yeah. I had a deal that was thrown out the window in my dynasty league just before 1 p.m. because someone had Aaron Jones and they wanted my AJ Dillon share, and I was willing to trade him. And I said, "Hey man, I'm going into work right now. This is my final offer." They send me another offer, a counter offer. And I didn't see it until after the game started, and I'm like, "It's your loss."
Yeah, con.
But anyways, going back after having a whole Puka Nakua spiel that we'll have all season, Tyler Boyd. I think you want to talk about him.
Yeah, he's my wide receiver pickup this week. Not a sexy pickup, I get it. But you got to hear me out on this one. He had 8 targets this week, which was really good since Burrow was terrible. 6 receptions, 52 yards, just 11 fantasy points. But if Burrow, say, does not play on Monday, it's going to be a guy called, I think, Browning that's going to play. And I think Tyler Boyd will end up being his safety blanket because he plays a slot role. Everyone just seems to be double teaming Jamar, and he just can't get away. T. Higgins obviously had a good week last week. But then again, week 1, he got a goose egg. He was 0. So the consistency has just not been there. And I just think Tyler Boyd might be the safe play. I mean, it's a bit like when we used to talk about Jacoby Myers. I think he'll be a safe enough option for these points around the 10, 11, 12 mark. It's whether he falls into the end zone and gets you a touchdown. And if Burrow plays next week, I think he shows he can throw the ball deep because whatever's wrong with his calf, he can't step into the throw. And he has to do these short throws. And I think that suits Tyler Boyd. So I just think if you're stuck already, I think he's not a sexy pick. He's not a ceiling pick. He's a nice floor pick going into this week with the question marks over Burrow.
See, here's my question to you. If Burrow doesn't play next week, are you still confident with Tyler Boyd?
I'd probably rather Tyler Boyd over the likes of Jamar and stuff like that. I'm nearly going to Nico because I just don't know what they do. I think the play calling sucks as well. I think Zach's back call plays on offense. I'm not surprised. He'd given it up at some stage, I think, last season. But I think I'll be more confident with that because I just think it'd be a good safety net. I think Mixon gets all, it's going to be a lot of Mixon if there's no Burrow. And I think then you'd see Tyler Boyd again in the slot getting the receptions. And then it's 50-50 what Jamar and T. Higgins do. Because you wouldn't be expecting the Bengals win anyway. No,
I mean, he had 8 targets, which, goes to show that obviously Burrow, he can't step into those throws. So he's going to try and dump it off short.
Exactly.
And Tyler Boyd's always there. Yeah,
that's it. Tyler Boyd was always a good guy. Just if you need just the yardage to get you your first down, just throw it to him. He'll get it. That's what he does. He's not spectacular. Like the odd time he gets the big play and gets into the end zone. But them big plays are for Jamar and T generally.
Yeah.
But I just think the way it's going with them, Burrow's not looking good, whether he plays or not. I think, Boyd is just going to be the safe option there for the Bengals.
Yeah, and he'll get you decent points as well if needed.
Yeah, I think so.
But obviously wide receiver 3 option, there's concerns. I mean, if it's a flex start, I think I'm fine putting Boyd in the flex. But Nico, I'm putting Nico over Boyd. Sorry, Keith.
Well, I'd rather have Nico's up there at wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 if he can keep this up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's where he's going. Like, Tyler Boyd just go in as a flex, and I think he'll be okay. That's what I think.
Yeah, exactly. Nico Collins, Tyler Boyd are 2 top wide receiver options. Some other viable options, Robert Woods, Josh Reynolds, Tutu Atwell, And Jacoby Myers, who obviously was inactive last week for concussion, he's only 69% owned, so he's still under that 70% threshold bar. So another top 4 wide receivers. I mean, do you like Tutu Atwell? I don't know.
Yeah, I was a Tutu Atwell guy when he came out of college. Little speedster, didn't have much height and strength. I could see how a lot of people on a lot of teams didn't like him because it feels like, if you just hit him, he could break. But he's definitely shown this year he can be that deep threat for the Rams. And I think if Nakua hasn't gone off, I think they'd be talking about Atwell a little bit more. Because he's kind of going under the radar. So is Nico Collins, to be fair. He's kind of going under the radar, even though he's had 2 big games. Not a lot of people.
He's the most underrated wide receiver right now.
Yeah, a lot of people just not talking about him either, which is interesting since he's been doing a lot better. But yeah, I'm in on that. Well, I played him in one of our dynasty leagues in one of my flexes, and it worked out.
Wow, that's crazy. He would have been on my bench.
Yeah.
But of course, those are our waiver wire wide receivers. Time to go to our waiver wire tight ends. Keith, tight ends are just so hard to find. But who are you hunting down to get for your tight end?
Your boy, Hunter Henry, back-to-back good weeks.
What? Hunter Henry?
Hunter Henry. I mean, he's always been viable. It's just been he has injury issues as well, going back to his Charger days. But this week, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 52 yards. Not big, but he did fall into the end zone. So we got you 17 points. I mean, to me, you can tell me different as a Patriots fan, but he does look like Mac Jones' favorite target.
I mean, you go back to what 2 years ago, I think, when he had multiple touchdown receptions each in 5, 6, 7 straight weeks, and then last year he kind of was here and there, in and out. The last 2 weeks, 6 targets, 7 targets. He's getting those targets. So I completely agree with you. I think Bill O'Brien coming into that team, he goes, listen, Henry's your favorite target. We need to incorporate Henry more. And no offense, but Mac Jones, he looks sharp. I mean, he threw that ball really quick.
Did. Straight through like the eye of a needle. Yeah, Max looked like he's taking a little bit of a step forward, especially when we talked last week and I said he was not good in the first quarter and then he improved. But then I thought he started pretty quick. I mean, at the end of the day, they're just not good enough to beat Miami. Miami is a better team, simple as. But I don't think it was really any fault of Mac Jones either that they didn't win. But Hunter Henry for me is someone that you go out and you put in your tight end position and you just play him week to week now. I don't think you need to stream him. He was always kind of that option on good weeks, but I think you just put him in and you play him, and he's only 47% owned. So there's plenty of Hunter Henry out there in leagues. So yeah, I think he's one to get.
Yeah, for someone who's 47% owned, I mean, he's he's his top option for me. I mean, he was my top tight end to pick up this week. I love Hunter Henry, and I mean, it goes to show Mac Jones really likes him. I thought Juju would be the top guy there. Doesn't look like it. Looks like it's Hunter Henry. And a couple times Gesicki, and then Kendrick Bourne sprinkling in there too.
Yeah, he's getting in a bit more.
So I think if you're taking any receivers right now and taking the chance on a tight end a receiver on the Patriots, it's a tight end, Hunter Henry.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, I got to go with my guy from last week as well. It's Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz, he's done phenomenal the last 2 weeks. I mean, he had 8 targets again, 6 receptions, got you, I think, just about 11.6 points. He's a reliable option moving forward in fantasy for tight ends. And last time he played 17 or 16 games and he had a healthy season, he finished as the league's tight end 6 in fantasy. And right now, he's listed as a tight end 6 before going to tonight's games. So Zach Ertz, Joshua Dobbs really likes him. If Kyler Murray comes back, there's a little concern there, whether or not Ertz will be reliable again. But right now, moving forward with Joshua Dobbs, I like Zach Ertz, and I'm willing to grab Zach Ertz as well.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the nice safety blanket there for Dobbs, big target. Are you worried about McBride, though, he got mixed in this week, and I think he definitely looks like a talent. I liked him coming out of college. You're not worried about him?
No, he's had 5 targets, 4 receptions, 55 yards the last 2 weeks. I'm not concerned.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't mind the Ertz call. I mean, I wasn't expecting him to be all go after the injury last year, but he looked great week 1. Again, good numbers again week 2. Like Hunter Henry, I think he's a guy you put in now and see what happens. I'd be more confident, in my opinion, with just Hunter Henry, just because I think Mac Jones is a better quarterback and the offense is better. But for week 3, I think if you need a tight end, I wouldn't go against Zach Ertz. And if he puts up, good numbers again, then you just leave him in there.
Yeah, I mean, I like Ertz and I think Henry. I think they're both. I would say they're both the top fantasy option ads of the week.
At tight end position or overall?
Yeah.
At tight end position, yeah.
I think, and Ertz is only 17% owned.
Yeah. Another one I would throw out, I don't know his ownership percentage, is Laporta for the Lions.
Oh, I love Laporta.
Especially Amon-Ra got banged up twice. And outside of Amon-Ra, obviously we've seen Reynolds get involved, but we don't really know who else is kind of like Reynolds got involved because Amon-Ra was banged up and wasn't there. They don't really have anyone else other than Amon-Ra when he's on the field. So I just think Laporta is a good ad as well.
I love Laporta. And speaking of good ads as well, you put me right into the alternative waiver wire options for tight ends. Sam Laporta was one of them, 65% owned right down. Hunter Henry, of course, as you mentioned. Kylan Granson had double-digit points for the Colts, 1.2% owned. And then if Logan Thomas is out, go check out John Bates, who got 7.6 points, and he's 0% owned right now.
Interesting.
So top people to add for tight ends as well, some alternate options. And, of course, Zach Ertz, Hunter Henry are 2 tight end ads of the week. Now it's time for the final segment in Monday Night Football. We got 2 games, Keith. 2 games. 2 games in.
How could I forget about this segment?
You would love to see your name pop up right there, being 1-0 against me.
Oh, there we go. There it is. 1-0. 1-0. Sorry, I'm just having a look. Your Amari Cooper, if you have him because you have shares, is active tonight because he was banged up with a groin injury.
I don't care. I benched him this week.
Oh, did you really? Okay.
I was not taking the chance on having every other receiver basically play and relying on Monday Night Football. No, thank you.
Yeah, I get it. But just there's also news on DK Metcalf. Sorry, before we go into it, that he's questionable with ribs now going forward, and we'll see how he goes during the week.
Thanks. I love DK.
So do I. Sorry, just seeing a flash up.
Hopefully he is healthy and can be a nice starter for me again this week.
Yep.
And of course, help your Geno Smith believer.
Yep. Help my Seahawks.
Yep. But first game, Saints, Panthers. I'll talk about a little bit for mine first. I got the Saints in this one, 19-13.
Oh,
I think it's a low scoring game. I think it's a low scoring affair here. I don't see Derek Carr putting up a lot of numbers, and I don't see Bryce Young putting up a lot of numbers, but I'm excited to see primetime Bryce Young, to see what he's going to be able to put up as the number 1 overall pick. But I got Saints 19-13.
I'm just going to double check it here. Just give me 2 seconds what I have, because I noted it. Yeah, I got it. I got Saints winning 20-16. So
20-16. Wow.
We're not too far off. I think Derek Carr and the weapons will just be too much. But like you said, I'm interested to see Bryce Young. I only seen him in bits. Didn't see a whole lot.
Exactly.
Really, week 1, I only seen bits of him. But I'm interested to see how he goes. Obviously, I'll see more next week when he plays the Seahawks. But I still think the Saints will be too good. Carr was still finding his feet with a new team. But managed to get the win in week 1. But thinking he'll have a good game again and they'll get the win.
Yeah, drove his car down to Carolina to take on these Panthers, see if he can go home with a win on the season. But our last game, since this is a doubleheader, and we'll have a doubleheader next week as well. The Browns and Steelers. Keith, Steelers did not look good last week.
No.
Are you taking them this week?
I'm not taking them this week. But that was the thing. I said last week, I think on the show as well, I said, I don't think the Steelers are that bad, and I don't think the 49ers are that good. I just thought it was week 1, and that's the way it is. I mean, I think the Steelers will be better, but I think the Browns will win 24-17.
24-17. Okay. I also have the Browns, so unfortunately we can't split games this week, and we can't tie on overall record.
Well, that's great, because I'm going to be ahead.
Yeah, you're still going to be ahead. But I have the Browns. Another. You have a 1-score game. I have a 10-point difference. I have the
Okay.
Browns actually winning this one 30-20. I think the projection was with Amari Cooper. I would have went down without Amari Cooper, but with Amari Cooper active, I think Browns will win this one 30-20. And I think the Steelers are going to start to hit the panic button because a lot of people believed in the Steelers.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. They're going to be missing Deontay Johnson, who was obviously has the connection there with Pickett. Solid, he's not a touchdown guy, but a solid slot guy, move the chains type of thing. Now you're kind of looking at Allen Robinson to come in there and do the job. You're going to have Pickens. I mean, Pickens is always a ceiling play for me. You're always expecting him just to go off. His floor is not a whole lot, but he could have big games. I think it brings Freiermuth into the picture a bit more as well. I'm guessing he's good to go because I know he had a chest issue after last week, but I haven't seen anything. I'm guessing he's good to go. I'd say if you have Freiermuth, start him, get him in there. I think he'll see more work, but not too impressed with the Steelers. Like I said, I don't think they're as bad as what we've seen in last week, but I don't think they're overly good either. I think we'll see a lot of Chubb tonight for the Browns. I think he could get a couple of touchdowns, and Deshaun Watson's numbers weren't great last week. He did okay for fantasy, but I think he'll take a step forward as well. And if Cooper is obviously healthy and he's out there for the full number of snaps, then he could have a good night too.
I got Najee getting into the end zone today.
Oh, yeah, he's going to get that one. There you go.
I need him to do good this week anyways. So
there you go. I wouldn't say it's too hot. One touchdown from Najee should be doable.
Would love both. And a passing touchdown. That'd be preferred. But I do also have some breaking news that just came in on Austin Eckler.
Oh, what's going on?
On his ankle injury. There is no timeline on his return.
Oh, interesting.
So he could be out next week.
So if he's out next week after Kelly's performance this week, do you start Kelly?
Yeah, can't. I mean,
like he was out there for basically for most of the snaps. They just decided to throw the ball more than hand it off. I don't think he was that bad, just his fantasy numbers weren't good.
No, I listen, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me once, shame on me. I'm taking the second chance on Kelly.
Okay.
I'm taking it. They go on to face the Vikings, who don't have the greatest defense. So, personally, I think I'm willing to take the chance on Kelly, and hopefully Kelly doesn't give me a heartbreak again. Then he's out the door. Yeah. He's dropped. Yeah,
and then if he does, then until Eckler gets back, all you want is Chargers receivers. That's it.
Yeah, of course. But that's going to do it here today in our Week 2 recap, Week 3 waivers. Of course, if you haven't done so already, there's still time. Go to Underdog Fantasy, use code SportsTimeHQ. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. And if you're trying to bet on some Monday Night Football, well, now's your chance to go get some free $100 in cash and go win and take some over-unders because those are always fun to play. But also bet responsibly. And of course, go to TrophySmack.com/SportsTimeHQ. Go get yourself some rings, belts, trophies for your fantasy leagues and give it to whoever is the winner. Or if they're the worst player in fantasy football, go get the poop trophy for them because they suck at fantasy football. Once again, that's going to do it here for Sports Time HQ. I was joined today by my co-host, Keith. You can follow him all over social media at SwampDonkey_90. And be sure to go follow him on Instagram at HuddleUp_NFL. I'm Fernando. I'm your host of Sports Time HQ. We'll see you all next week at 6 p.m. Eastern.